let's look at what we want to go on to today to go through, specifically talking about the surveys. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about cross-connection control programs, because we need to understand how a program works to know how to do the survey. So there are different types of programs. We'll talk about that. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about preparing for a survey, and then actually going on the survey in general, and then specific types of facilities that we might find when we're out doing the survey. We'll talk a little bit about the report, and then about compliance, or bringing people into compliance. So again, as I mentioned, this is we're going to cover a lot of information, but it's not going to make you an expert. You're going to learn, hopefully you'll learn plenty and learn a lot, but you're going to need to put this into practice and spend a lot of time out there doing surveys to really pick up the stuff you're going to need for this type of job. So what type of cross-connection control program are you dealing with? And you know, for the webinar here, we have people from 8 different states in the United States and 2 different provinces in Canada. So you guys are all dealing with different regulations. Here in Los Angeles, I'm very familiar with what happens here in California and Los Angeles, because I know what the regulations are. Some of the places we deal with regularly, we have a lot more information about. But your particular area may have different requirements. So that's where we want to look at what type of cross-connection control program are you dealing with? What are your jurisdictional responsibilities? Now, I hate to say in general, but for the most part, water purveyors are responsible for system protection, meaning they're responsible to protect their water distribution system. Once they deliver water to a customer, once it goes through the meter or through the service connection, that is no longer their responsibility. So then it's dealt with a different agency usually, and in a lot of cases it's a local health department. So that's definitely how it is in California. We did a survey years ago for the American Water Association Research Foundation, the Water Research Foundation as it's called now, and we found that 65% of water agencies across the nation had either a system protection program or a combination system internal protection program. And 35% of the water agencies out there had an internal protection program, meaning they were responsible for the water distribution system all the way to the point where the water is used anywhere in the distribution system, anywhere in a residence, anywhere in a factory. So the water agency then is responsible all the way to the end. Typically, we don't see a lot of that, but it happens. So again, if 35% of the agencies out there do that, then that'd be sort of interesting. So some of you probably have an internal protection program where you're responsible for your distribution system, even though it's inside a customer's property. So again, what we're used to seeing is the water agency being responsible for system protection, and then health department being responsible for internal protection. Either way, you need to do site surveys. Either way, you need to have a cross-connection control program and be able to handle the different things that we come across. You typically will find also a plumbing code enforcement, either done by you know, a city's, the municipality, the building or safety department, plumbing department. There are different local departments that will check out facilities. Usually that's at first construction. So when a building is being constructed and they want to make sure that it meets the plumbing code, there's some usually inspectors that go out there and do that sort of thing. Again, typically this type of stuff being done to make sure plumbing systems meet the plumbing code is usually done by their building safety department, some sort of local code enforcing department. But again, that's usually just done at initial construction. So when we talk about different types of protection, system protection, some places call it containment, where we're dealing with protecting your distribution system. Again, I'm just going to protect my distribution system. Once the water passes through the meter or the service connection, it's no longer my responsibility. That would be considered a system protection program or a containment program. Internal protection, again, would be responsible for the quality of the water all the way through the system until every last use of water throughout the system and inside the properties, etc. So again, System protection programs responsible to the service connection of the water meter. However, even though that's all I'm responsible for in a system protection program, I'm going to do an internal site survey to determine what's needed at the meter. So we go out to do a site survey. We're going to look at a building. We're going to look at the facility. We're going to say the water comes in here, and we're going to follow it along. We're going to find out what type of problems we might encounter in this particular facility. And we're going to get that information. And with that information, we're going to say, okay, because of this, this is what we need at the meter. We need a backflow preventer at the meter because this is what we found. So we're using an internal site survey to determine what should go at the meter. You probably could just walk up and say, you know what, I don't care, I just want something at the meter and require it. That's a possibility, but we find that when agencies do that, then they get complaints from customers that they're spending money on something that really isn't needed, and then city councils get involved and they tend to go with the voters. So just be careful. You want to make sure to do your job, to do it well. Here, even though you may do a site survey internally, you want to make that requirement for the meter, but you want to be able to justify that requirement. You know, I came in and I found all these problems, therefore I need a backflow preventer at the meter. Internal protection programs, you'd basically be doing the same thing as far as the survey goes, but you're doing that including all the water uses on the property. So now I would come out, instead of saying, okay, I see problem 1 through 10, and because of that I want something in the meter, I'm going to say, I see problems 1 through 10, and I need you to do this on problem 1, this on 2, this on 3, throughout the system to make sure that the property owner takes care of each problem, because each of those need to be taken care of in order to protect the water system within the facility. So the enforcement agency that does that, whether it be the health agency or maybe even the water agency, that is how that would be done. You need to make sure you detail every particular point of water use that is a problem, every cross connection that's there, and what has to be done to fix that cross connection. So again, for internal protection programs, there's an internal site survey, but again, that's what's needed at every point of water use. So there's 2 different types of programs we tend to deal with, internal protection and system protection. Either way, you need to do an internal site survey, because you do the internal site survey and that tells you what is either needed at the meter, or it tells you that there's a problem at this particular point of water use and what needs to be done to fix that problem. So let's talk a little bit about survey preparation. There's several things we can do to get ready for a survey. So as a program specialist, someone who does site surveys for your cross-connection control program, you're going to need to be ready to defend your decisions. You want to make sure, can each of your decisions be defended in court? Can I say, I let them get away with not putting in a backflow preventer because I didn't think it was a big problem? Now you have to imagine, if backflow occurs through that, do you have a defense for that? No, you don't in that case. But let's say you require a backflow preventer and the customer complains to the city council, and the city council says, this customer complained, why do they need this? Now you need to be able to go back and justify, well, they need this because I did a survey and I found, A, B, C, and D, which is dangerous to our water system. Therefore, I require them to put in a backflow preventer. So that can be defended, and that's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to have a justification for what you're doing. So in this process, there needs to be some sort of standard practice of care. So you show that you were careful in what you're doing. You show that you were being diligent in your job. Part of doing this is showing that there are regulations that you're working to enforce, to get the customer to uphold. So there may be state regulations, there may be local regulations, there may be other guidelines just locally. There can be some recommended guidelines like the EPA manual for cross-connection control. AWWA has manual M14, which is a cross-connection control manual. There may be regional manuals, the USC manual of cross-connection control. These are things that you can use to show that I'm providing a standard practice of care because, these manuals show us this is what we should be doing. So you have the documentation with the manuals, you have the regulations or the local codes or ordinances that you're following. So you want to make sure that you have all this stuff laid out so that you show your program is following very specific methods to carry out your program. You don't just go up there and say, well, yeah, I'm just doing this because it sounded like a good idea. Well, no, you need to have a better answer than that. You need to be able to have some sort of information available, like I'm doing this because of the regulations, because this is what's done all over the country, because the EPA, the AWWA, USC state these things should be done. Okay, so some site survey information. In the manual, so in the USC manual, if you don't have a copy of this, you want to get this, you probably should have a copy. This is a red manual. You guys probably all know what this is, I hope. So in this manual, there's a lot of information that we would use for our site surveys. Chapter 4 will talk about responsibilities. What's the responsibility of the water agency, the health agency, the homeowner, the plumbing department. So it looks at the responsibilities of different agencies and different individuals so that everyone works together to get the cross-connection control program taken care of. So chapter 4 talks about responsibilities. It also talks about cross-connection control programs. What type of things should be in a cross-connection control program, how to carry out a cross-connection control program. So a lot of information just about cross-connection control programs we'll find in chapter 4. Chapter 5 is all about site surveys. So a lot of information there is going to be very important just about how to prepare for site surveys. Some of the information we're going through here is going to be things that you would find in chapter 5 of the manual. And then chapters 6 and 7 are sort of helpful tools as we go through our site surveys and our preparation. Chapter 6 is typical facilities. And when we get into that, we'll talk about that a little bit about, we just sort of break them down into general ideas. This type of facility, these are the type of things you can look for. So it gives you an idea, so you know you're going to go to this type of facility. It gives you an idea of what to prepare for. So typical facilities is chapter 6. Chapter 7 is equipment and systems. And again, there's a lot of equipment, a lot of systems there, but we cannot include everything. Everything, it's just not possible. There's too many things out there that use water, that connect to water systems. Sometimes you're just going to have to investigate the piece of equipment to understand how it uses water. Is it considered a cross connection? Is it not? You need to know how that piece of equipment works in order to do that.